Today, as people throughout the nation protest for justice in our land, forgive us when we have failed to lift our voices for those who couldn't speak or breathe for themselves.
That was Senate Chaplain Barry Black saying a prayer on the Capitol steps yesterday. He was surrounded by congressional staffers who walked out of work as a sign of solidarity with the Black Lives Matter movement. We're joined by a public affairs associate for the Senate. He helped organize the walkout, Kamaya Marshall. Kamaya, welcome to News One Now.
Thank you.
How did this whole thing start? So, I mean, obviously we've seen the protests around the country. So how did this discussion begin to say y'all wanted to make this public step?
This has always been a discussion on Capitol Hill in general, especially with all the Black staffers. This is not anything new. However, organizing it has been something that we had to really put together. Being that we're on Capitol Hill working with different legislators, that's important. So we have to do it in an organized fashion.
When did it first come up?
This actually has been going on for some time now, actually since the whole Trayvon Martin thing. We had a lot of issues and briefings and hearings on Trayvon Martin. When that started, that's when the awareness was there on the Hill. Now,
obviously, you said among your African-American staffers, but if we look at that video there and actually play it again, please, you see a rather diverse crowd.
Yes.
Once it began to spread, y'all were going to do this, did others say, we want to join in?
Sure, yes. Capitol Hill, we support diversity. It's all about the people. Everyone on Capitol Hill is working for the people. So it's not about one race. So it's all about coming together as a whole, as a collective, as people. We all bleed red blood. It's all humans.
And so one of the things I'm also curious about, what are the conversations taking place between staffers and their bosses? Because they obviously can have an impact when it comes to policy.
That can be something different. It all depends on who that boss, who that member is. Everyone has different opinions. Everyone has different take on what they would like to happen or what they think is right. But for the most part, I'm actually pretty surprised at most of the members. They're actually in agreement to what's going on right now, most of them. But right now, as you can see with the change in the climate change in politics and how things are about to change due to the parties, you know, we'll really see if change will really happen and if they really are for these changes now. So
one of the things we often hear in the streets is that we want to turn moments into movements.
Exactly.
How do folks on the Hill, particularly staffers, given the difficult nature of politics and policy, turn this into a movement, not a moment?
Well, it's already become a movement. Capitol Hill, we are aware of that. It's all about we do the legislation, which matters. That part matters. The protest matters because that brings awareness to everyone. Now we need the real laws passed. We need those bills passed, and that's where that conversation is important. And that's where also to people, we have to let everyone else know that matters. We need the protest going, but we also need the legislation going. That's why it matters that we need more African Americans in office, in elected office. We need more people out there. And so once, for instance, all the voting that did not take place, especially within my generation, the millennials, I love the energy that we're using and how we're organized and mobilized, but we need to use this same energy to mobilize people to get out to vote. That plays a major role right now, and that's the conversation that's going on right now, because we're going to feel it for these next 2 years.
So, Kamai, I'm curious about this, and I wrote about this when I was down in Ferguson when I left there. Sometimes voting isn't enough, right? I mean, Mike Brown was shot at. It's not like Darren Wilson asked him if he had a voter ID card, you know, before he started harassing him and eventually killed him. So my question is, how do you not just motivate people to vote, but how do you motivate people to vote on those issues that are going to affect their lives? Because a lot of times people are like, well, if I vote or re-vote for Lacey Clay, that's not going to make a difference in Ferguson. If I vote for this congressman, it's not going to make a difference. So how do you focus the voting on those positions that are actually going to make people feel like something gets accomplished?
One, you start by mobilizing within that community, finding your leader. That's the problem. We tend to vote in those same people all over and over and over again. You have to find those leaders who are really about the change, who are really going to do the work. And that's how you start that. You have to find those real grassroots people. Right now, within my generation, it's going to be a change. You're not going to have the average politician.
Right.
You're going to have more public servants, and once we bring in more public servants, that's how we'll get that attention to change, bring on a real change.
And be willing to recall some folks too.
Don't you think the piece that's missing in black advocacy is what effectively Heritage Action has, where they connect the issue to embarrassing somebody and then they connect money to that?
To extent,
like we're missing something in the pressure department. Don't you think?
The pressure department is because of, in that department, the people who run it are totally different, and that's why we're missing that. Once we have that change in there, and once we have more minorities a part of the system, that pressure part can change. Until we get more of that, more minorities in leadership, that can change. It can really be a real balanced system.
Right.
I think it was really interesting that we saw the dichotomy of the Black Lives Matter protests yesterday, but then last night, money mattered more when we think about this House vote.
Right.
So Lauren brought up an interesting point earlier when she talked about money. How do you combat against all the money that's going to be in politics that's going to be fighting against some of the things you're working for?
That's an interesting question. One thing, money always plays a role in a lot of things, but it shouldn't be looked at that way, even though it is, and it will always be looked at that way, because money talks. And I'm pretty sure different members, it's different agendas. And you know, everyone on Capitol Hill isn't bad. Even the members, even some of the members, no matter what party they represent, they're actually good. Most of them are good people. So it just depends on their personal agenda. Hopefully they shouldn't have a personal agenda. They should be representing their district, their state, etc.
All right, well, come on, we surely appreciate it. Thanks a lot for joining us.